Well, if you've worked a job, then you know that cliques at work and in-groups and out-groups can be more of a problem than they even were in 7th grade. This chapter talks about listening to outgroup members. We're going to discuss the challenges and opportunities of working with outgroups and specifically how you or any leader could strategically work, or why they should do that, work with outgroup members. One of the responsibilities in an organization or team is for the leader to include everyone, especially outgroup members. If a leader makes the effort to include and empower those people, it can lead to improved relationships between the leader and member and also cohesiveness with the whole group. In turn, that can enhance the group's work and the organization's functionality. For this chapter, I want you to know what is an outgroup member, what are the positive outcomes, how they form. You need to know how leaders can use social identity theory in a positive way and be able to explain social identity theory. You'll want to know why leaders should worry about outgroup members and the strategies leaders can use to handle them. A specific note within those strategies, understand the methods of demonstrating empathy and what LMX theory is and why positive relationships are so important in an organization. This is way beyond happy hour. This is about having an organization that functions. An outgroup member is a person or a group of people in an organization or in a group who do not identify themselves as part of the larger group. Outgroup members are people who are distinct from the larger group in some ways. Outgroups are common, they're inevitable. Outgroups can be formed by demographic aspects like sex, age, race, ethnicity, but also more arbitrary distinctions like which class you're in, which sports team you root for. If you walk, if you're riding a bike, if you have one kind of computer or another. Think about Apple users versus Microsoft Surface users. Some outgroups are fleeting and others are longer lasting. In leadership communication, when we talk about outgroups in the workplace, we're often thinking about people who may feel disconnected, unaccepted, marginalized, or discriminated against in their team or department. Additionally, they may feel powerless because their ideas or contributions haven't been recognized by the group. Sometimes outgroup members self-exclude. Maybe they don't want to contribute, to be part of the group, or they disagree with the vision or just don't personally like the leader. But sometimes that's not the case, and the members want to be a part of the in-group but feel excluded or marginalized for some reason. Take a second to think about when you've been part of an outgroup, maybe at work, at class, an organization. Why do you think it happened? How did it make you feel? Did anyone or did a group of people try to include you in the group, or maybe not? Now, there are positive outcomes here. We're going to talk about the detrimental part later, but it's important, I think, to recognize the value and positive outcomes of having outgroup members. People who don't identify with the group or differ in goals can help prevent groupthink. They might offer new perspectives, go against group opinion. They might be comfortable doing that. Additionally, outgroups can help bring up uncomfortable truths or help in-group members see their biases and why an outgroup feels disconnected and accepted. As leaders, we should make efforts to listen to and respond to all group members. Our textbook author, Peter Norhaus, in video 10.1 talks about how good leadership is about moving people toward a goal, but not at the expense of the minority. So doing our best to bring outgroup members into the group and making them feel heard and valued is incredibly important. The text has a good overview of how outgroups form. In the section, Norhaus mentions social identity theory, which is a theory social psychologists and communication researchers use to explain that outgroups sometimes develop because people feel like they can't identify with the in-group members in terms of beliefs, norms, values. And that could be something like, the people who drink coffee together. A lot of times at work, you'll see like the people who smoke, and they form a group because they go out and they smoke together. Social identity theory proposes that the groups we belong to play a role in our personal identity, our sense of who we are. Our groups are a source of pride and self-esteem sometimes, whether it be your family, a major, a school, a football team. And when you feel like you cannot identify with the group and are an outgroup member, that will lead to social comparison and making negative attributions about others to maintain that sense of pride and self-esteem. For instance, wherever you live, you might notice rivalries between locations. According to an article in Texas Monthly called Fort Worth hates Dallas, they say Fort Worth hates Dallas, Houston hates Dallas and Austin, San Antonio hates Austin, Austin wishes the rest of us would just go away, and Dallas pretends that none of the rest of us even exist. That was a quote from there. But you might see that people in these cities unite together against a common outgroup, like Oklahoma. Texans have a lot of pride in their state, so you can see how much social identity theory can play out. I'll always remember going to school out of state and meeting a fellow Texan and thinking, yes, someone who gets it, they also know what a legitimate taco is. But there's that immediate bond. It can happen because of the tie to the identity. You have shared common experiences. In fact, researchers have found even when dividing people into groups with something trivial like the flip of a coin, heads you're in this group, tails you're in that group, people still make positive attributions of their group, their in-group, and negative attributions about the other group, the out-group. I had this as a class activity once that actually a group of students came up with and did, where they divided, and they had me and the team, us into a group that was like the Apple users and a group that was the Android users. And even if that wasn't our phone, it was just what we said we were doing. And then we were asked questions like, well, how do you feel about the people on your team? But that immediate grouping, I felt positive about my team member. And I'm like, I don't know what that other team was doing. That is what is going on here, where you are even arbitrarily put into a group of people. And then you start to think, oh, I don't know what they're doing, and that other out group. Understanding this theory as a leader is valuable because if we can help our followers feel like they belong to the group, our work team, our department, at our larger level, our company, members will have a sense of pride toward the group's goals. To aid this process, leaders should establish good relationships with followers, especially new ones, to help them feel like part of the group. Additionally, leaders should communicate that they themselves are part of the group, one of us. That can be simple as communicating our goals are rather than saying my goals for this group are. A little communication trick there. When people share social identity, they're focused on working alongside each other rather than competing against each other. Leaders can take advantage of social identity between groups to foster competition and foster productivity for both groups. When doing this, leaders should emphasize the uniqueness of the group compared to others, how we are different from them, and communicate that the group is superior. We're better than them. The in-group, out-group competition should be on a company level. For instance, if you've seen the American television show The Office, you often hear characters emphasize their company's customer service over big chains like Staples. This competition could be on a branch level. So in The Office, you often hear characters talk about the Scranton branch, talking about other branches. A leader could utilize these distinct groups to foster competition and seeing who can get the most sales. However, when you start using them internally, you need to be really careful not to vilify other departments and branches. We talked about that in the chapter about conflict. Since you're in the same company, you still have to work with them, and you need to not create divisions where if you reorganize, you're working with those people. Now that we've explored some of the benefits or uses of outgroups, let's look at the negative impacts and why, as leaders and followers, we want to be inclusive on teams and avoid outgroups. First, having outgroup members on your team or in your department affects community building. Because outgroup members are either conflicting with or avoiding community, this action detracts from the community being able to use all of its resources to reach a common goal. This can lead to a negative impact on group synergy. As we learn in Chapter 8, cohesive groups benefit from positive energy and can become very high functioning. Outgroup members can take away from that energy and productivity, especially if they have intense negative emotions towards the group. Additionally, it's harmful because the group isn't using the contributions of outgroup members and can fracture into multiple camps that work in opposition of each other. Think about a department maybe where somebody does a scheduling spreadsheet and doesn't want to give that scheduling spreadsheet to another department that could also use it. A third way outgroup formation can have a negative impact is when outgroup members do not receive the respect they deserve from others or in-group members. Outgroup members often have valuable contributions, but if a leader, especially if he or she is closely tied to the in-group, or in-group members ignore or actively oppose the outgroup perspective and ignore their contributions, this can lead to maladaptive sense-making because the in-group isn't taking in all of the available information into their mental model. Outgroup members may have a valid concern, and as good, respectful communicators, we need to remember to listen to them. So, now as leaders, how should we respond to outgroup members? First, we need to listen to them. When people feel like they're being heard, or at least have the ability to express their ideas, they feel affirmed and connected. So as a leader, how do you do this? First, listen for ideas, not just for facts. Good listeners focus on the big picture. They don't just hone on facts, but they're looking for the main concepts and the issues being addressed. Second, be open-minded. Don't react immediately if you disagree. Don't start thinking about your response while they're talking. That interferes with listening and understanding. Third, ask for clarification, not justification. So here's a couple of communication examples. So let's try saying something like, could you clarify what you mean when you say your hands are tied, versus saying something like, explain how your hands are tied. Second, thinking about asking for clarification, that helps express that you understand the main idea, but are also looking to understand details more fully. Asking for justification of feelings can put the outgroup member on the defensive. Finally, monitor your nonverbal cues. You want the person to feel heard. Actions like putting down your phone, dimming your computer screen, or turning down your windows, facing towards the person, making eye contact, not rolling your eyes, physically signal they have your attention. Maybe nod your head to demonstrate understanding and processing, and avoid actions that come off as defensive, like crossing your arms over your chest. And these are all things where I'd encourage you that you can get feedback interpersonally that you can then apply in the workplace. As a side note, I mean, really, that works in any relationship. Try it with the family members. See if you can get feedback from somebody who you really trust. It's a way that you can improve your performance at work and also possibly your relationships. The second strategy is showing empathy. With empathy, you're focusing on suspending your feelings in order to fully understand the feelings of another person. Understanding an outgroup member's perspective or situation helps build trust and validates the follower. A lack of empathy can be a big factor in discrimination and sexual harassment situations in the workplace. Making insensitive remarks about a person's race or ethnicity, or commenting on somebody's body, or making a physical advance demonstrates a massive lack of empathy. If the erring person considered their perspective and situation, they would change their actions. It's part of the reason I'm theorizing that some of our training that we have now doesn't quite work, because it doesn't focus on building empathy. Some people are naturally empathetic. Others are going to learn this skill through practice. It's a good way too, when you're coaching employees on ways to improve, to focus. Here's some ways that you can develop empathy skills. I'm not going to focus on the table since it's in the book, but you can see they hit on validating people, demonstrating understanding, showing support. Other ways you can do this are going out of your comfort zone by going new places, learning new things, developing and expanding your perspective, and asking for feedback. This is huge. Ask for feedback from people on how you're doing, and then express to them that you do care about that feedback. A third way a leader can respond to outgroup members is by recognizing their unique contributions. This sounds like what we've learned in our diversity and inclusion chapter, right? People want to be recognized as individuals and contributors. Expectancy theory supports this strategy because it says that the first step in motivating others is to let them know they're competent to do their jobs. Acknowledging contributions can motivate people because that acknowledgement is recognition of their efforts. Finally, leaders can recognize others by making everyone feel useful and like they're using their talents to benefit group goals. Can you see how this loops back to our chapter on strengths? It would be helpful for a leader to know each group's members' strengths because they can utilize them. This is especially true for members who feel like they don't belong in the group. Paying attention to their contributions can foster a sense of ownership in terms of their work, and know what they contribute has value. We've learned in previous chapters that there's tension between wanting to be seen as unique or an individual and feeling like you belong in the team. With Strategy 3, a leader can address that part of the individual aspect. Strategy 4 considers that sense of belongingness. As a leader, pay attention to outgroup member cues and respond appropriately. For instance, you have a new team member. Do they seem or they feel like they're being included? Do they eat lunch with the coworkers? Can they speak up in a meeting? A leader needs to be sensitive to outgroup members' needs and situation and try to respond to them in ways that let them know they're part of the larger group. The fifth strategy is that a leader should try to create a special relationship with outgroup members. But more broadly, a leader should try to cultivate high-quality relationships with all group members. Leader-member exchange theory, or LMX for short, centers on the relationship quality between the leader and follower rather than focusing on categorizing people as in-group, out-group members. LMX breaks it down this way. When people have high-quality relationships with the leader, there's more trust in the relationship and subordinates go beyond their job description and look for ways to advance the group's goals. In response, leaders give them more responsibilities, opportunities, and time and support. When people have low-quality relationships with the leaders, followers do what's required but nothing more. Leaders in turn don't give them special attention but treat them fairly and based on their formal contract. When leaders strive to build high-quality relationships with each of their followers, that can maximize not only those one-on-one relationships but provide benefits for the team and the organization because everyone feels on equal footing. So how do leaders build these special relationships? First, offer new challenges. Special relationships can develop when a leader challenges outgroup members to be engaged and to try something new. That means giving followers opportunities to take on new roles and responsibilities. Second, if an outgroup member accepts these responsibilities, it is the first step in forging an improved relationship between the leader and that person. A follower may not accept the responsibility and be okay with not having a high-quality relationship or being part of the outgroup. Third, leaders should try to provide mentoring and respectful communication. Don't focus on the in-group and the out-group. Instead, try to build trust and respect with all followers, attempting to make everyone in the in-group. This theory loops back to the conscious and unconscious biases and warns leaders to avoid letting those biases impact who is invited into the in-group. The outcome of these efforts is the outgroup member can feel more validation and connection with the rest of the group. LMX scholars have found a connection between relational quality and personal and organizational effectiveness. Followers with high LMX relationship, meaning good, high-quality relationships with the leader, are more satisfied with their job. You'll see the big list here. They have better mental health. They're more successful. Beyond the follower, the team gains benefits, which helps the leader. So team members might be clear about their roles, more productive, more motivated, more honest. And this, in turn, is great for the organization because people are more committed, less likely to quit, and more influential within their organizations. The final strategy is for leaders to give outgroup members a voice and empower them to act. This is a difficult step because it means you trust your outgroup members to act independently and have power over tasks. With this strategy, leaders strive to give outgroup members a voice. It lets them be on equal footing with the members of the group. By giving outgroup members a voice, they feel more influential. Along with giving a voice, a leader should empower others to act so that outgroup members can be more involved and feel more in control of the direction of the group or the project. This empowerment involves a lot of trust because in general, that is not something everyone wants to be in the in-group. The exclusion could be voluntary due to a number of factors. As a leader, recognizing that can be helpful so you can figure out how much people want to be included or empowered, or perhaps even address the other issues with your team that is excluding people. So in conclusion, as you study for this chapter, really focus in on what are outgroups, how do they form positive, negative impacts, and how they should respond. And in addition, and again, this is not just in the book, but think about the LMX theory. When you have a relational approach to communication and you're considering people's perspectives, people's individuality, applying empathy, and working towards the best of the organization, you're going to be more productive, you're going to be more successful, and you'll probably have a happier time when everybody goes out for coffee.